This is Greg Gilbert, host of Python's Paradise, and we are halfway through 1996 film reviews here on Python's Paradise, and if you've been following along, I take basically my 5 most anticipated films of the month, and I talk about those and whether my expectations were met. I've seen a lot of films that year, but I don't really want to talk about everything. I just want to talk about the films that I'll take 5 a month, and I'll pick those 5 and see whether my expectations are met. So this is not necessarily a top 5 of the month. It's what I picked, and my rating system, A+ to F. You know, if you're in the A zone, peachy keen, you're excellent. If you're in the B zone, you got some flaws, but you are entertaining and recommended. If you're in the C zone, well, I'd say die-hard fans of talent or genre may play a factor on whether you enjoy it or not. If you're in the D zone, well, you're dirt. And if you're an F, well, you're fucked. And here we are with June. And whereas with May, we had 2 films that I talked about that had an A+, with I Shot Andy Warhol and Welcome to the Dollhouse. June, we don't even have a film in the A zone. June's a little disappointing month for 1996. Because I only got 1 film that I recommend out of the 5. But I'll tell you what, in order of release, the 5 films I'm going to be discussing. We have The Phantom with Billy Zane and Christy Swanson. We have, we have The Cable Guy with Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick. We have Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we have and James Caan. We have The Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy and Jada Pinkett. And finally, we have Striptease with Demi Moore and Burt Reynolds. Interestingly enough, and I find this amusing, The Nutty Professor and Striptease were both released the same date. And I'm like, you want to talk about 2 total opposites, you know? You got the overweight guy and you got the sexy hot stripper. We'll see where I land on those. But those are the 5 titles I'm going to touch upon here. And the worst one of those 5, we're going to start the worst and work our way up, as I always do. And at the bottom of the June 1996 barrel is Striptease. Striptease won the Razzie for Worst Picture that year, and didn't do much for Demi Moore or Burt Reynolds' reputation. Burt Reynolds would at least make up with it with Boogie Nights. I'm not sure Demi Moore ever made up for it. But I gotta say, when I first saw the poster for Striptease, I love that poster. Demi Moore is stark naked on it. And the way her body is positioned, whether her arms are going this way and her legs are going certain ways, you know, she's covering up everything. Her hair looks stunning. Her face is gorgeous. I mean, look, I don't want to sound like a pervert, but Striptease, I like what I saw as far as Demi Moore goes. She's very well in shape in that movie. She looks stunning, and yes, she's got a great body. However, the film itself sucks. I mean, if you thought Showgirls was bad the year before, well, Striptease does very little to move above that. It's directed by Andrew Bergman, and Demi Moore, of course, is dealing with a child custody battle situation where she has to strip. Her ex-husband, who's trying to screw her on the custody battle is played by Robert Patrick. He went from Terminator 2 to this. And then you got Ving Rhames playing the bouncer of a club. He went from Pulp Fiction to this. And then you got Burt Reynolds, who I found kind of amusing as the obsessed congressman. This is not his best performance, but at least he's amusing, you know? Striptease is awful. You know, it's basically, you know, the whole point of the movie is Demi Moore, who looks absolutely stunning, as I've already pointed out, in a film that's basically there so you can oogle her, which pretty much I did. And so did so many other people who had seen it. They didn't see it in the theater because this movie bombed big time, but you got to have more to your movie than a great-looking woman with a great body. You got to have a screenplay, you got to have a director, and you got to have a production team to back you up. Striptease was more or less just a jerk-off show. So with that, I give Striptease a D-. It's the worst of the 5. The second worst I'm going to talk about is a film that my brother and I saw together. My brother Andrew and I saw together, called Eraser, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, we grew up with Terminator and Conan the Barbarian and you know, Predator and stuff like that. And there's a lot of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies we like. We went into Eraser expecting something fun, and we saw something that was just a little better than Striptease. I mean, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, this is something my brother and I talked about after the movie. He gets a pickaxe to the shoulder, and he just keeps going full steam. I'm like, there comes a point where there's no sympathy anymore. And this was a film where you lose disbelief. I can believe Martin Sheen when he goes through turmoil and survives an apocalypse now. That's believable. I can't believe anything Arnold Schwarzenegger does in Eraser. This is a screenplay that obviously should have been erased and rewritten into something intelligent, which this film was not. Directed by Chuck Russell, who did The Mask, which was a lot more creative than this. I don't even recommend this to diehard Arnold Schwarzenegger fans, you know. The characters aren't even memorable. I mean, it's got great action as far as that goes. You got a scene where a bunch of alligators are maiming human bodies, which you get throwaway villains that are maimed by alligators. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just seeing lazy writing. Erase it. Eraser gets a D. And still in the D zone, the third film I'm going to talk about is The Phantom. I'd never heard of this comic book. I guess it's out of Australia. I went based on the fact that you get a purple-clad superhero. I was like, okay, this looks different. Went to the movie, and it was like they were trying to be Indiana Jones clad in a purple outfit, and they just made a shitty movie. The Phantom is not good. Billy Zane is playing the Phantom. You get Christy Swanson in it. You get Catherine Zeta-Jones. This is the first time I'd seen her, and she obviously had improved herself over this. There wasn't much to this movie. You know, they were trying to make money on a superhero that did not spawn a franchise. I can't even remember off the top of my head what the plot was about. I saw that as well as Striptease over at the old Twin Cinemas. And that's the only time I seen it. That pretty much tells you all you need to know. I'll give it a D+. It was better than Striptease. It was better than Eraser. It was a great-looking film, production-wise. That's about it. That leaves 2 more films left. Thankfully, they are not in the D zone area. But 3 out of 5 that are in the D zone's never good. Means that was a rough month. But the next one I'm going to talk about, though, is The Cable Guy. Now, The Cable Guy stars Jim Carrey as a cable guy who was pretty much raised on television and really never had any experience in social connection. And so he meets Matthew Broderick, who just went through a breakup, and he's installing free cable for him. And Jim Carrey takes it upon himself to become friends with this guy, and Matthew Broderick feels a bit smothered. And when he tries to tell Jim Carrey this, Jim Carrey decides, you know what, he doesn't like the rejection and decides to sabotage his life, including planting equipment that Broderick had not stolen, and he spends some time in jail. Basically, he's infiltrating and fucking around in Broderick's life. The Cable Guy was pretty much Jim Carrey's first box office disappointment after his big success. Because in 1994, which I call the year of Jim Carrey, he had Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, he had The Mask, and my personal favorite of the 3, Dumb and Dumber. 1995, he had Batman Forever and Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. So then he gets to 1996, and he was on such a roll. Then you got The Cable Guy, which didn't make its budget. Here's the interesting thing about The Cable Guy, though, is like The Craft and The Frighteners. They both gained a much bigger audience later. You got those films that weren't initial box office hits that gain an audience later. I hear Cable Guy get a resurgence quite a bit. Same with The Craft and same with The Frighteners. You know, and The Cable Guy had an interesting setup. I like the whole idea of the Cable Guy because I love the title, Cable Guy. Cable is the key word. A cable connecting to something. He feels totally detached from reality, but he's trying to latch on to this random fellow played by Broderick. And I remember it took me a bit to even accept Jim Carrey in this role, but I'm kind of like, now I kind of get it. He actually does play it well. Matthew Broderick is really good playing the protagonist who's got to deal with this tick on his life, so to speak. Other characters aren't very broad. I mean, I'll say that. There's very little development in terms of supporting roles. However, the movie's a good-looking film. It's comedy paralleled with thriller elements. And the climax is completely ridiculous, but again, it's better than Striptease, it's better than The Eraser, and it's better than The Phantom, which both hit rock bottom with me, all 3 of them. The Cable Guy doesn't quite hit rock bottom, but it's not something I would recommend on the same level as, say, Dumb and Dumber. But if you're a big Jim Carrey fan, you might want to check it out. I give The Cable Guy a C, which means could have been better. It wasn't. But it's if you're a big Jim Carrey fan, you may want to check it out. Now, the last film I'm going to talk about is the one film out of the 5 that I really recommend, and that is The Nutty Professor. My younger brother Andrew and I saw this at the old Kmart Plaza, or not old Kmart Plaza, old Twin Cinemas on the north side of the river here. And we got the Nutty Professor late. We didn't get it in June. We got that late. I think we probably got that in July or August. But it was a film that we really wanted to see. And it was one of the top 10 highest grossing films of the year. So why we didn't get it right away is beyond me. But when it came out, we were there. And we had a habit, especially me, of sneaking food into the theater. And Andrew and I went out and we filled our knapsack with food like ice cream and chocolate bars, various candy and pop. Needless to say, we were so stuffed in that movie that there was not a washroom safe after we were done that movie. But there's a scene in that movie where you got Eddie Murphy brilliantly playing more than one role around a dinner table. And he's playing all except for the little kid, the little overweight kid. Eddie Murphy, I got to say, is brilliant in this movie. But there is a massive fart joke in this movie, and Andrew and I were laughing so hard during this scene that our sides were aching. It hurt so bad. Now, this, of course, is a remake of the 1963 Jerry Lewis film. And this is one of those rare occurrences where the remake is better on several levels. Watching Jerry Lewis's version, I never understood why his professor was a professor. Because he goes to the dean's office and he's got alarm clocks and shit coming out of his pockets and making noises and stuff. I never understood why he was a professor. Who would hire him? I understand fully how Sherman Klump, Eddie Murphy's professor, was hired. He's a smart man. He's a brilliant man, but he's also good with people. His students love him. He's got hamsters that he's testing some formulas on, and he's massively overweight. Eddie Murphy, I gotta say, it's one of the greatest performances ever for him, because he plays Sherman Klump. He plays his grandmother. He plays his mom. He plays his brother. He plays his father. Like I said, all in that dinner table scene. He also plays Richard Simmons, which is funny to see. Eddie Murphy's brilliant in this. It's a great performance. Was it Academy? And he wasn't even up for an Academy Award. And I would argue he probably should have. Rick Baker's makeup effects was, and they deserved it. Rick Baker's makeup on Eddie Murphy is absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of great sequences in this. Now, people who are overweight may be sensitive to some of the jokes in this, because Eddie Murphy tests the potion on himself. And when he comes through after collapsing, he looks like regular Eddie Murphy. He's thinned down, and he calls himself Buddy Love. And where Dave Chappelle played a comedian that was mocking him when he took Jada Pinkett, a new student teacher, out on a date, he was mocked by Dave Chappelle. And that's what led him to testing the potion on himself. And in doing so, becomes Buddy Love. And of course, he goes out and he gets revenge on Dave Chappelle and puts him in his place. I like Dave Chappelle playing an against type comedian, because he's almost always good-natured and things. Jada Pinkett was really good playing Carla Purdy, who gets to witness one of these dinner scenes, and she's torn between Sherman Klump and Buddy Love. She finds Buddy Love very fascinating, but very egotistical. I liked Larry Miller as the dean. Very underrated comic actor. And I love the first scene, because when the the gerbils get loose and all around, you know, which gets called in the dean's office, and he goes, Sherman Klump squeezes into this chair. He goes, and great line delivery by Larry Miller. He goes, comfy? Need anything? Coffee? Juice? Rack of lamb? Larry Miller, very underrated, and he's great line delivery in this film, and he steals his moments. There are other characters I wish had more, like James Coburn playing somebody who can be a potential donor for the science department. A bit underused. He's making an appearance, but I wish his role was a little flashier, you know. And, you know, you get the students, you know, the student helper. You know, I wish that role was a little more flashier as well. And, you know, but all in all, like the Nutty Professor, it's got comical moments where they're making fun of ER and Godzilla, or no, not Godzilla, King Kong and dream sequences, you know. This movie's just, it's great to look at. But it's very repetitious. And it's a film that won't appeal to everybody. Those that are struggling with their weight may not care for some of the humor in this. That's very weight insensitive. But Sherman's got a good heart, and he's a likable character, and we're rooting for him all the way. I give The Nutty Professor a B+. And it's sad that's as high as any of these movies this month have gone. There's no A-grade movies, but, you know, I have The Nutty Professor on Blu-ray, and I've interviewed Sina Massey, who's one of the girls sitting at the nice-ass section in the film. She's been on the show, you know, and I have great memories of The Nutty Professor, seeing it in the theater, and I wish I could rank it higher in the A section, but it doesn't quite hit there, you know, but nonetheless, it gets a B+. So go Nutty over Eddie Murphy in this movie. A B+ for The Nutty Professor. A C for The Cable Guy. If you're a diehard Jim Carrey fan, you want to get plugged into him, do so. If not, he's done better with Dumb and Dumber and Truman Show and stuff like that. But as far as The Phantom is a D+, Eraser is a D, and Striptease is a D-. I can't recommend those. Sorry, can't recommend those. So there we go. That is halfway through the year, folks, as we head into July, hot July. July 1996, where I turned 24. We'll see what movies we talk about then. Until then, get nutty over Eddie Murphy.